If you've ever been to Chef Mickey's at Disney World for breakfast, you've seen or tasted the breakfast pizza, and it's delish. Now, I've seen a number of different recipes. They even give you the recipe when you get your photos taken there, and it usually starts with a pre-done pizza shell, like a boba for example. I didn't happen to have one in my kitchen, so I went with crescent rolls. You'll see how I lay the crescent rolls out to form a pizza shape, and then I roll them together. Now, if I was to do them the opposite way, so that the short ends were facing out, you could make a breakfast ring instead, and then you roll the ends around it. So there's a number of different ways to use your pizza or circular stone. I used two sets of crescent rolls, and I just laid them out in a circular fashion with the points facing in, the wider ends facing out. There's no perfection here, and in fact, all I'm trying to do is make enough space to put all the crescent rolls down, and then I'll roll them together with a pastry roller. I also have a marble rolling pin, but it's a bit of overkill for this particular task, as it's quite big and quite heavy. The pastry roller works best here. You're probably thinking this looks a bit a mess, but don't worry. Once you roll it out and once you bake it up, there's no way to tell what's going on underneath. It'll be covered in eggs and cheese. Here you see me using the pastry roller to roll it out. The pastry roller has two different ends, one bigger than the other so that you could get into small spots. There's also a little fork gadget attached to the handle there. So if I was doing an actual pie shell with it, you would use the little fork thing to punch holes in the dough so that it bakes up nice. You can do the same thing. You could use that same little fork if you want to punch holes in like the tortilla shells so that you can make the tortilla bowls using the baker if you wish, things like that. It's quite, see that white handle there real fast? That pops out and you can use it to punch holes in it. So now the dough is pretty well rolled out and pretty even. I'm going to put the crust in the oven for just a couple of minutes while I prep the eggs. At this point now, I'm somewhat winging it because the size of my crust is much bigger than the boboli shell would have been. So the recipe called for 2 eggs, heavy cream, and a certain amount of cheeses. I'm going with 4 eggs and milk instead of the heavy cream, simply because I didn't have heavy cream. Also because, again, I think my overall pizza size is going to be significantly bigger than what it would have been if I used a boboli. So my cheeses I had pre-shredded over the past week in different recipes. I stored them in my glass prep bowls. You see them in the background now, and I eventually pour them in this bowl to mix in with the eggs and the milk. That doesn't wind up working out so well for me. Luckily, I had extra cheese. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a cheese fiend. So I had more cheese in the refrigerator that I had shredded up in previous evenings, and I wind up topping the pizza with even more cheese. It winds up being about the same ratio you would have gotten at Chef Mickey's. You'll see it in the end. So I didn't do any measuring at this point. You can measure away. There's plenty of these recipes online. Just look for Chef Mickey's breakfast pizza. And again, if you ever go to Chef Mickey's, they actually give you the recipe that they use. This recipe feeds a crowd and is very kid-friendly. In fact, you can get your children involved in the preparation. Kids love that baker's roller. just let them roll out the crescent rolls. And kids love to whip up eggs. Of course, you'll have to hold the bowl unless you get the kids' baking set with their big turquoise bowl. But they'll love to participate in this. You sprinkle some cheese, you pop it in the oven, and about 10 to 15 minutes later, depending upon your oven, you've got a great breakfast pizza. Use the pizza cutter to cut it because you can use metal utensils on our stoneware. So it's metal utensil safe, and wind up with an absolutely delicious, cheesy, eggy breakfast pizza. I hope you enjoy. I know I sure did.